Board.
Hello, board.
Hey. Good stuff.
Maybe not exactly that.
Off to a good start here.
But it's looking forward to this, and we will try to do a little bit of introduction to the concepts, and if you look at kind of the what are we talking about. So in terms of content modeling, we are basically seeing a diagram here, and we will not cover the content modeling kit and how you can make these diagrams to document your model in this stream. We have covered that before. There's links in the description to the Figma content modeling kit. But this is a good example. This is our Hello World example, where you have recipes, ingredients, appliances, and chefs as part of a product universe. And the thinking is that you model out both the structure of the product information that you need in order to market and sell your products, but also the product marketing. And in the example of ingredients, you typically would use recipes. This is our main example that we have here. And also the goal, because we do a lot of content modeling with our partners and clients, it's to have a common language, I would say, between different roles. So designers, you have editorial users, you have information architects and developers. And with a proper content model, you can both design something that is reusable and works, but it's also a documentation that allows people to be on the same page when you talk about the structure of your products. For the context here in terms of content modeling for e-commerce, so this covers, as a summary, the two things of the product information, so the base product information about the structure of the products, the dimensions of a product, things like this, but also we like to include the product marketing or the generic content that you use in order to build out the beautiful e-commerce experience. So that's the context we will look at today.
Yeah, and of course, like you say, it's hence the pin with the twist part. That one thing is the structural part of products, and then it's the marketing content. And there's two segments when it comes to content modeling. There is the semantic part of it, which is all the data properties of a product, and then there is channel-specific product or content modeling. And this is a good example.
Yeah, and I would say this is a structured piece of information. You have the recipe, you know exactly how many grams of an ingredient is featured in that dish, for example. So it's very structured and semantic, and can be used for any channel. This could be used to generate a product catalog, but also a recipe book, right? So it's very very structured approach. But that's not always the case in terms of what you want to achieve, right?
Well, no. And this is the basics. And then, of course, a lot of you probably have a website that you want stuff for. And it's not only products, because a website or an e-commerce with just product information, properties, is good, but it really doesn't sell itself, right? So what you might also need is something for what you call merchandising. At least here in Norway, it's merchandising. And also generating content and pages for different categories, even your front page. And this is an example, and this is what you get in the boilerplate, where we structure everything with product shapes, all the semantics, everything that products have, but also a tile. And a tile is basically a building block where you can put products inside, and then you can add marketing information and desk it wherever you want in your tenant, like the front page. I want it on top of the kitchen category, and create banners, sliders, and stuff like this, for example.
And of course, this is the case where you would, and in this, so this is for our remix boilerplate, the structure we have for the shapes and the products in Crystallize there. where there is a concept of tile, which kind of connects what Didrik said. If you want to have a banner on the front page, you can create a tile, which is just a banner with a call to action. And this is typical channel-specific content. And this is what in this case is being used to build landing pages or promote some products on a category page. It's content which is typically not living for a long time. It's being used to achieve a marketing goal in a channel for a certain period of time. Whereas if you look at the structured approach, that is typically for content you want to reuse across multiple channels, multiple brands even, and that recipes is a good example of that. So today we will, I think, have mostly a look at a structured approach to content modeling, and we will not dive into these models that are pre-created. And if you want to have a look at the Figma library that we have, it's a link which Didrik is showing now on in the stream. But okay,
it's last wording on the subject.
Yep.
It's a modeling kit, so you can get all you saw in Figma, and like Bert said, you can document your content model. It's easier for you. It's easier for the developers to see what kind of fields they can expect. And it's also good to have the documentation. So try it out. It's a viewer clone in Figma. But over to the most important part.
Because now you have created a Crystallize tenant for this live stream series. And let's start with the basics. And in Crystallize, we call the building blocks, we call it shapes. So this is what you would use in order to build custom structured products or documents. And the third is folders. And let's take a look at what that means in terms of building blocks for content modeling. So if you take a look at the in your tenant, you can go to the shapes and the settings, and let's just delete what is in the default there, Didrik. So we start really from scratch.
So these are the shapes that you get whenever you create. It's just the default shapes, simple shapes with the simple information or components. But today we're going to delete them so we can start fresh. And as you might have noticed on my first catalog, we have no items. This is a whole new tenant, so we're starting everything from scratch.
And if we start then with, let's start on in the middle with the document. So this is a generic piece of structured content that you can use for example, creating a recipe, if that is what you would like to create. In our example today, we wanted to take books as an example. So, and we will start simple in this stream and try to explain the concepts, and we will go further and further in the two next streams on a little bit more complex and advanced content modeling. But I think you're about to write author, because that would be a natural document, which is, in this context, when you're doing content modeling, you could have author as a field on a product. That's fine. But it means that you have to enter that text on each product. And maybe you would like to have some rich information on the author. So in this context, we would like to, of course, to have a name. So, and what Didrik is doing now is taking the components that are available on the right-hand side. That is different types of data that you can add to any shape in Crystallize. So we will do a name. Maybe we would do a place of birth as a text string. Yeah, just a line. And what is useful? An image, picture.
We might need a profile picture of the author. Here we go.
Yeah.
Picture.
Born, like a date, for example.
in the date component, date of birth, and let's also do date of death.
And should we do like a short bio, a rich text component, something like this? Yeah.
Bio.
So what we did here is, instead of on a product where and we're going to make a book as an example, we wanted to extract the information which is shared among multiple books, and the author is a good example of that, where we can have all the information about the author and the image and have this being linked in for the different products. So that's what we will do in this example. And of course, as you see, you can just add custom components, these fields that will be available to complete the shape, so that you have the marketing information that you need in order to talk about an author, for example.
And of course, one of the reasons why we are creating an author as a separate document is that we can reuse it, because an author often have multiple books and products. So instead of typing all this information every time we create a book with this author, we want to just say, okay, this book is written by this author, and then we can do that once for all the books. So if there is a living author and the person dies, we could enter the dates of birth one time only, and it will populate all the other books. And we'll show you how.
Good. I just answered a question on the stream. And it was on the date of birth. So it's in this case, we're going to create a book of an author which is no longer living. So we have date of birth and date of death in that context. Yep. Should we create a product shape?
I think we should. So important here is that all of the different item types or shape types has some properties. A product has some default attributes that you can add, which is product images, prices, stock handling, and stuff like that. While a document is the flattest form that you get from a shape. A folder is, of course, a folder. You can put stuff inside it. And, of course, have shapes or components on it.
Yeah, and the good thing with a folder, it's easy to think, okay, this is a category. It's used because that's what the folder means in some systems. In Crystallize, it means that it's a hierarchical document, which you can use to build semantic structures. Think about if you're going to sell cars. You could start with the make, Mercedes. You could have a model series, A-class, as a folder. And you can have specific information, for example, on the model series, which interiors are available. And then you could have another folder under there, for example, which is of a shape you could call, model year. So, it's a Mercedes A-class 2021 model. And you can build this product hierarchy, which allows you to really build configurators and in more complex purchasing processes. So, but in this case, we will stick with the product shape, which is essentially what you can buy.
Yeah. So, what is useful for a product shape for a book board?
So, I would like to have a title.
All right.
So this is a text string, single line, simple, the most simple component we have in Crystallize and most used. Then I think I would like to have description.
Since we're talking books, I'll go summary.
That's a good one. And typically on books, you would like to have an ISBN, for example. In this case, we're going to use the SKU for that. So the the prices and images comes automatically if you use a product shape. So we'll get back to that when we enter some content here. So we don't have to add the product variant name or the prices or the images. That comes automatically with the shapes that are created of a product type.
I think let's utilize what you have already created. Let's utilize the author shape and for the product, because when we're on a product shape called a book, we want the author to be linked in here, which we do with an item relation component. So what this does, whenever you create the shape book, you will be displayed title, summary, and now author. We'll link the author to only accept the author shape, which we created previously. We'll also say that we need at least one author. At the moment, let's just keep it at.
Yeah, you can have multiple. That's fine. Yeah.
So here already we have created some semantics. Of course, we've created some rules stating that we need a shape here, another link to another shape, which is author. We'll populate it later, but at least we have the basics.
And what I would like also to, which you often get a question on, okay, I would like some specific information for a channel. Could be, for ebooks or for web, for different meta information for web, for example. So how would you do that?
Oh, this is a good one. I would create a chunk. A chunky Crystallize is a grouping that has the property of being, it can be repeating, or it just groups some components together. So what we are going to do now is create a chunk called meta, which will be the channel-specific meta for the web. In here, we'll add another title. We'll add a rich text as a description and an image. And the reason is often because maybe you want channel-specific images, and social media OG share, Open Graph shares are usually a specific resolution. So here you could specify, okay, this is the image you are going to fetch if you share the link to this book in, let's say, Slack or Facebook.
It's good, and it's a good example of it. This is structured, but it's channel specific also. So and you can envision this for if you are going to generate a product catalog in PDF, for example. If you're doing that, you could have channel specific titles, for example, that are so and so many characters long, because there might be limitation with that specific channel. So, but this here is I think it's a good shape. We will continue to extend this, and also in the other streams, we will make it much more comprehensive. But we want to start with the basics of this is a total custom type of product. We have the author extracted as a reusable piece of information. Now we have some other concepts in Crystallize also for organizing your products. This is the catalog, and we have something which we call topic maps. But maybe we start with just getting a folder shape in place, because if we're going to build hierarchies, we need to have something as a folder, which basically means you can put documents, folders, and products under this or items created of this shape.
Now is the hardest part, the naming of things. Is it a category or is it just a folder book?
So typically when you're doing e-commerce, you would call it category. In our case, we'll do it simple, because I would do category for what you do, like shop, books, fantasy, things like this. But we're also going to create a folder for the authors. So I'll just, in this case, just call it folder. And we'll not make it more complex. And you don't have to give it any components. It now has a name, and you have a structured approach to building a hierarchy. And I suggest we leave it like this, just to have it in its simplest, leanest form.
Yeah. So now this is basically just something to organize your other items inside the catalog. It doesn't contain any information other than that this is a folder and it has a name.
And what Didrik has done now, this is data modeling essentially. So we've concretely built out the 3 types of shapes for the book, the folder, and the author. And if you now go to the catalog, we can start creating some content, because this is also empty.
So for this example, I'll create a folder first off. Let's call it, I would like to have all our products inside of one folder, and then we can extend it with genres and stuff like this. So for now, let's call it shop or store or something.
Or just books, if it's a bookstore.
Or we could also just call it books. Like I said, naming is the hardest part. Here we go. And you can see, the only thing we are represented right here are topics. We'll cover that later. But for now, we have our folder. And I'll publish it as well. So inside of books, let's create fantasy.
Yeah. And in this context, for a real web shop, I would probably, when you're building out these categories, I would probably have a separate shape for that, probably called category, which you can add some specific components. It could be things like maybe you want to link up some marketing content on top, featured products and things like this. So this is just a very, very simple baseline for what you can do with folders.
What we also need, of course, since we created an author shape, I'll also create an author folder, which we can store all our authors in. So here we go. So now we have our basics for a catalog. Let's do the books first, or at least one book.
Okay.
I'll create a book. We have some content ready for this. We'll call it Lord of the Rings.
The Hobbit, you mean?
Easier. Hobbit. So here you can see, now we are presented with all the components that we created on the shapes, also all the attributes and properties of a product shape on the top here. We have the title, the summary, and the author, which we will create later on, and the meta chunk. So let's start populating. We do the title, which is once again The Hobbit. Hobbit, here we go. Also add some text here for description or summary. So this is what it's all about. Of course, since I create a limitation on the author, I can save it, or this is auto-saved, but I can't publish it yet. And this is because in the shape we created, okay, we need at least one author to finish this product. So then we'll go back to authors. We'll create our author in here. You can see we can only select one shape. We're going for J.R.R. Tolkien.
It's an L there also.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
At least I can help with spelling.
Yeah.
And
Good.
top tip, Didrik, I know on your other screen, if you scroll all the way down in that document, you have some content you can cut and paste.
Ooh, you made this easy for me. So then we have place of birth. It's here. What you didn't provide was a full name.
If you go a little bit further down in the bio, the first sentence.
Oh, here it is.
Yeah. And now we're just, this is internal discussions on the shared Google document we use. So I
but at least we came prepared.
Oh yes,
so
always.
We'll add a picture of token as well. Here we go. Here we have token. We'll do the bio. And date of birth. That was 1892. Oh, that was one too many. Right. And leave them till, we're not going to do the full thing. Let's just go for January. So here we go. Now we have the author token. This guy we're going to publish. So now we're going to navigate back to our books. Here in fantasy, we have The Hobbit. Let's link him to this book. We go into our author folder. You see J.R.R. Tolkien. We drag him here, and here we are.
That's nice.
And now I can actually publish as well.
So both the reusability here, but and in addition, the content quality rules that you have there, so that you ensure that you're not publishing books without an author. That's the rule you set there. I like it.
Exactly. Of course, you can use this to other things as well, not just an author. This is up to you, what you need to have some semantic relation between different objects in your tenant. So we could use this for related books, an example, and drag products into the products. I also want to cover, before we go further, the metadata. You can see here, we can add the metadata. And if you want to call it something else for whenever people share this link, let's just say, buy the Hobbit now. It would show up in whatever microformat you send on our Superstore. We did forget was to add image of the book.
Yeah, and as you see on top here, you have the product card, and all the properties there are automatically added or made available when you create a shape of product.
Yeah, Hobbit cover. There we go.
Yeah.
And we have 100 in stock.
And you can set a price. And now, right now, the price is in euro. This is totally configurable in terms of the products, and it's in Crystallize we call that the price variance. So you can add any number of types of prices, but you can also do the same on stock. So you can have stock locations, different warehouses with different stock, or even unlimited stock.
You can also see we have a big button here called Add a Variant. We'll cover that in the next session because that's when it starts to become a bit more complex. So let's just keep going with the basics there, Bård.
Yeah, I think in terms of the structure that we've set up now, so you can of course drop in a custom image on the meta there. And what we often do as a best practice for the web is that if you don't enter any meta, you will of course take it from the book's name and the summary and the cover image, right? But it allows you to have optimized content for either OG share and or meta information to be indexed by Google. So you can also differentiate. So you could have different for social media and different for Google also, if you want to have them.
Or any other specific channel, if there's anything you want to link it to. And it has a other set of resolutions or 10 characters maximum.
So one thing I'm a little bit curious on, because now you've created a hierarchy of products. You have the category fantasy, and of course you could do multiple there if you would have more books. I know you will start with one book in your bookstore, but there might be that I would like on my website to have some filtering. I would like to have some additional information, maybe for additional navigation to find books, not only because I'm not sure I know that this is under books and fantasy. Of course.
Sure.
That's not what we're going to show now.
What we do have here in Crystallize is different types of organizers. So we have the catalog, which is your basic tree structure. We also have what we call topic maps, which is another way to organize your content. And you can also, in your front end, fetch data based on topic maps.
Yeah, so typically labeling, filtering, navigation, faceting is some of the things you could use topic maps for. And it's to give as much semantic information as possible to different types of products and or content, so that you could link them together and you could more easily organize a lot of products. It's not that necessary with this catalog today, which has one book, but I promise there will be more books in this store soon. And a good example is languages. If you want to, for example, add I don't know, English, French, Norwegian, something like this. This means that we can add topics for the different products that describe them in terms of which language it is written in, or if it's an audiobook, what do you call it?
Mm-hmm.
Spoken in. The spoken word. And this could be one dimension, right? So this is languages. And then you can have something else. For example, which age is this suitable for? Is it a kid's books? Is it for young adults? Or is it who is this for, right?
Exactly. I also just want to, before we create that topic map, we can also fine-grain it even further by creating, you have Norwegian, but usually have 2 different languages in Norway, or different variants. So we can go for bokmål and all popular New Norwegian.
Which is seems like the old Norwegian, but that's weird. And here you could also do, in French, you could do Canadian French versus French, right?
French.
I don't know what French is called.
Me neither. But the idea is that you can fine-grain it as much as you want and categorize it in many levels down in a topic map as well, and assign it to different parts of your tenant. But what we are also going to do is create a topic map called age. Because we want to categorize books into different age groups. This could go for everything. It could go for videos or movies. But here, it's books. So all suitable for all audiences. So for kids and young adults and adult. There we go.
Simple. And like this, you can keep going on. Materials of colors, anything you want to give as a description to your products, so that you can make it easier for customers to find it.
Yeah, and for yourself as well.
Yeah.
So what we want to do, of course, is now that we have our topic maps as well, we want to categorize our one book in our fantasy genre here. And if you go all the way down here, you can see we have something called topics. I think the Hobbits, it's suitable for all, or
is it? I think you need to be a little bit. It's not if you're 4 years old. I don't think so. Maybe young adult and adult. So teenager and adult.
Let's do that. So age adult, young adults. It's also, since we have this now in English, we'll add English. Now we have categorized this into 3 or 4 different places where you can actually resolve this book or find it, depending on what you want to do on your e-commerce store. You can have a navigation which is age and find books that are appropriate for adults, and then it will be there. Or you can find books that are in English, and it will be there as well. Hence, why I want to organize it in different organizers as well, because you might want to have different ways of getting your product in your store.
It's good, and this I think is a good example of how you can start really, really simple, and this would be enough to be able to sell a book. But what if you would have multiple types of books, hardcover, softcover, or paperback is it called, and maybe ebooks, and want to describe them, maybe different contributors for the different books. Maybe you want to have something about this is part of a series called Lord of the Rings. Yeah. So there's a lot more information we can add here, and we believe we should do that in a structured way, and we will do that next time.
Yeah, because we need to prepare the content. No, but at least I think this is enough for now. This is the basics on how to create shapes and structure your content in Crystallize.
And if you want to try out yourself and haven't already, you can go to crystallize.com and just sign up to a Crystallize tenant. It's a free tier. You get access to exactly what Didrik has been showing today. So you can play with the modeling and the different types of shapes you can create.
And more.
And more, much more. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Anything we forgot? Any questions? Anything? If not, we're going to sign up for today.
So the question was wondering if we created a folder called authors. And we created a folder called authors because we were planning to add multiple authors. Maybe you want to have Stephen King. Isn't that not another author, for example?
We can create another. We can add, what's the name, man? J.R.R. Game of Thrones.
Oh, is it? Yeah.
Check. Yeah. George R.R. Martin.
So it's to organize the authors in the same location, basically. And if you have a lot of authors, maybe you even want to have a more fine-grained structure for it. Like we did with books, where we want to organize, not just have a list of books, but maybe you want to have categories and maybe even subcategories. Because bookstores, as we know, they have a lot of books. So to make it as organized and neat as possible, that's the thinking.
And once again, this is up to you how you want to organize your content and how much content you have. If you're a author wanting to sell your book, you might not need a folder called authors. You can have a shape called folder, which is yourself, or a shape called author, which is yourself.
And this is kind of the art with content modeling, because you have to combine both the structure of the different pieces of content. What's a book? What's a car? What's an appliance that you want to sell? Or what's a blog post or how-to article with featured products, things like this. And then you also have the information architecture, which is basically what's the hierarchies that you're building in terms of folders and subfolders, and what you name them, what type are the folders. As we talked about, we can have components on folders also, which could be, for example, let's do, you know what? We'll do one extension just to explain this. Because if you go into the shapes and we want to extend the folder, and now we're going into a shape which it doesn't have any components. But let's say that on a product category, you would optionally like to feature from 1 to 5 books on top. how would you want to do this? And this would be channel specific. So we could do item relation, for example, and just say featured books. And then you can say, well, it could be optional 0, but up to 5, and then, but only of the shape book, for example.
Yep.
Okay, so this is a simple example, which means that if you go back to your catalog and go into, maybe even into the fantasy. So if you go to a category and go to fantasy, and then let's envision that this was a big list of books, but right now I wanted to feature The Hobbit. Then you could add that semantically directly to the fantasy category. And then, of course, this being a headless service, it would be available for the front end so that you could render a banner, featured books with a bright colored background, for example, or something pretty. So, yeah. So this is an example of how you could, add some structure or some more components to the folders, which are really powerful. But we'll dive into more examples on more storytelling and more semantics, and also more complex version of the book. And that will be in the next stream, which will be next Thursday at the same time.
All right. I'm ready. I'm going to be here. Let's do it.
Cool. Okay. Then I'll click end broadcast and see you in the next one.
All right. Thank you all.